Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir-Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Bari'il khalaiqi ajma'een. Ba'ithil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Thumma as-salatu was-salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Khatamin nabiyyin. Shafi'il mudhnibeen. Rahmatan lil Alameen. Maulana wa Sayyidina Abil Qasim Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرض مولانا حجة ابن الحسن عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. اللهم صل على محمد ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الإمام محمد الباقر عليه الصلاة والسلام اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. رحم الله عبدا حبس نفسه علينا. Our fifth Imam has said, and this has been our title hadith for the entire series, that may Allah have mercy upon the one who devotes himself or dedicates himself to us. This is the spirit with which we deliver these lectures, inshallah. And the whole objective was to bring Imam Zaman into the forefront of our mind, provide a link with Imam Zaman, to bring him into our lives so that he's more real for us. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He accepts our small efforts, all of the azar, all of the tears, all of the matam and all of the efforts that we've been doing, inshallah, He accepts. And He gives us the shafa'at of Lady Fatima, inshallah. May He answer our prayers, increase our rizq, help those members of our community who are sick and unwell. And may He shower His grace and blessings upon all of us, inshallah. We all pray that we are there like a unwavering force on the side of Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We started off, tonight's lecture is going to be a very quick recap of the whole thing, and then we finish off with the remaining gaps that are remaining. We started off by discussing the concept of istirar. That yes, we know some information about Imam Zaman. Yes, we respect him, we love him, no doubt. The thing that seems to be missing is istirar, that feeling of desperation, that Yusuf al-Zahra is not just one solution amongst many, he's the only solution. For the faraj, for the rescue to come, for the salvation of humankind, to bridge our gap between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala properly, we need waliya khuda. We need the representative of Allah, and without him we are lost. The only solution is the rescue of Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. So we discussed this concept of istirar, and istirar really is the game changer. Because it is istirar which is answered by Allah. Amma yujibul mustar. Allah answers the mustar, the one who is in a state of desperation. After that, we went on to discussing Imam Zaman's characteristics and attributes. Many times we ask, what should we do for Imam? I turned it on its head and I asked, what does Imam do for us? Because when we understand the role of the Imam and how beautiful his presence is and how important his presence is, then we understand that we need to yearn for Imam Zaman. So one of them was that he is hayy. He is living. He is the living Imam. And what that means is that he is living in a very immediate sense. He walks amongst us. He enters our buildings. Who knows? Have we sat next to him? Have we prayed next to him? Have we walked next to him? Have we touched his blessed shoulder with our shoulders? Maybe we rubbed past him at some point. In fact, in hadith it says that when he makes his zuhur, people will say, actually we know this man, we had seen him, but we had failed to recognize him. That is how real he is. And then we went on to the current discussion, which is that he will be the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we do not believe in an Imam who is bloodthirsty and cruel, that he represents somehow the anger and the wrath of God. No, we understand him as representing the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. that how merciful He is. So this is where we have reached in our discussion. And tonight we just want to finish off with a few more pointers and filling some gaps, inshallah. There may be questions in your mind. These have to be brought tomorrow. We have a Q&A session dedicated to this. So inshallah, I hope you'll all be ready for tomorrow with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli. When Imam Zaman comes, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, human beings will learn to live in a new way. They will learn not to live by materialism. Materialism will be replaced by what? With the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That everything must be done with the tawheed of Allah. That wherever we look, we will see the hand of God. At the moment, we don't see the hand of Allah. Because at the moment, we live in a world of cause and effect. We live in a physical world. Okay? Whatever we do, we only see the physicality. But inshallah, Imam Zaman, when he comes and he gives us his grace, he puts his hand upon our heads. If you remember the hadith, that when the Mahdi comes, he will put his hand upon the heads of the people. And with that blessed hand of God, which is the hand of God really, manifested in the hand of Imam Zaman, their aql will become perfect, their akhlaq will also become perfect. This is the blessing, the wujud of Imam Zaman. So people will be able to see things in a different way. They will see the hand of God behind everything. Instead of the zahiri causes that we usually attribute. If I'm sick, I go to the doctor, zahir. He gives me medicine, zahir. I take the medicine, zahir. The medicine has a chemical reaction inside my body, zahir. That chemical reaction causes me to heal, zahir. That is all zahir. It's the right thing to do, but that's not what's giving me shifa. The shifa is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When I do business, I think, okay, my customer is paying me, zahir. The money comes to me, zahir. I see my bank balance improve, that is zahir. But what is behind it is that Allah is Razik and Razzaq. We will see the hidden causes. Actually, they're not hidden. We think they are hidden because we have not yet switched on to that frequency of Allah. But actually, that is the way the world is being operated by God. These things that we see, we attribute to them because we are under different veils. I won't go there at the moment. But because we are hidden from these things to a certain extent, we haven't opened our eyes of the insight and eyes of the heart, so we don't see these things. Imam will train us. Imam will show us the tawheed of Allah in practice. Imam will show us the tawheed of Allah in practice. Someone comes to Amirul Mu'mineen and says, "Oh Ali, the way you worship, oh Ali, the way you worship, it is as if you see Allah." Imam Ali says, "If I didn't see Him, I wouldn't worship this way. I don't worship a Lord that I don't see." They said, "Ya Allah," like we would say, "Ya Allah, you mean you see Him?" He says, "Not with these eyes. I see Him with the eyes of the heart. I've opened these eyes," which most of us, they are still closed, unfortunately. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send this Imam. He will perfect our knowledge. He will perfect our akhlaq. The human sum of knowledge until now, until the zuhur, is 2 letters out of 27. He will come and bring the equivalent of another 25 letters. So we have not even touched the surface of human knowledge yet. When Imam comes, he'll bring those knowledges and those sciences and those awarenesses that we cannot even think of or dream of right now. So a number of things are possible. Number one, people say that maybe interstellar travel becomes possible. This is a maybe. This is one of the theories. This is one of the ideas. Another thing that we will see very much happening during the time of Imam Zaman is we will see the dead coming back to life in a way that it will become so common that we will not be surprised by it any longer. Now, why does that happen? That happens for 2 reasons. Number one, to fulfill the promise of God of Raj'at happening. Raj'at will happen. In other words, some of those who are dead will come back to life and live on the earth. It's not the first time. We have had other Raj'ats before. For example, in the time of Nabi Isa. Nabi Isa, as you know, one of his miracles was he used to raise the dead. And on one occasion, after he raised someone from the dead, They asked him, they said, tell us, what did you think? Now that you have lived, you have died, you have seen that side, you have come back to life, tell us, what is your impression? How did you live? What did you think of life? You know what he says? He says, life on earth was like this. Imagine a house with a front door and a back door. He said, life on earth was like I entered from the front door, I just walked a few steps and I exited from the back door. That was my life. Imagine how quick this life is going. In any case, he will make it common for people to understand and see the deceased coming back to life. Raj'at will happen, other things will happen. The other reason behind that is to prepare us for the day of judgment. If you remember in one of my earlier lectures, I said, this is the order of the wisdom of God. It has to be like this. There has to be ghaibat, then there has to be zuhur, then there has to be rajat, then there has to be day of judgment, so that people are ready for it. And people will have seen some of that. He will bring forth the treasures from the earth, and people will have more than they need. Hence, there will be no more fear and greed. Now, let us continue on this with something from Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. Sixth Imam says, it is as if I am with the 12th Imam in Najaf of Kufa, that means that area of Najaf and Kufa, and he is wearing the armor of Rasulullah. At that stage, there is not a single believer except that there will be a happiness and a joy that will enter his grave. People of the graves will feel happiness. Allahumma adkhil ala ahli al-quburis surur. Oh Allah, grant the people of the graves happiness. This is the time of the zuhur. They will rush to meet one another and give glad tidings that the zuhur of the Mahdi has happened. People of the graves. See the barakat of the wali khuda. See the barakat of the representative of God. Now his whole agenda will be one of reform and forgiveness and gentleness and tenderness. As I said, yes, there may be some who are stubborn in opposition. They will be seen as obstacles. They will have to be removed. But that is the last resort. He's not an imam of anger and wrath and fighting and war and bloodshed. He's the imam of mercy. Those who don't have a forgiving nature, a gentle nature, a tender nature, those who are very, what we say, sakhdgir, they are harsh, they hold people to a harsh account. Well, what role will they have in the company of Imam Zaman? Because his whole agenda will be forgiving, tenderness, gentleness. The more baggage you hold on to, the more bughz, hatred, negativity you hold on to in this life, the more it weighs you down. Trust me, when you have something negative against someone, it is hurting you more than it's hurting them. You may feel that, in a passive-aggressive way, you're showing your stance and this kind of thing, and there may be a time for that at times. But generally speaking, holding on to these things is very negative for us. It eats us inside. It rots us inside. So the agenda of Imam is to be forgiving. Those who are heavy in this way, they will not find sweetness in worship. They will not find pleasure in speaking to God. A man comes to Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He says, Mawla, for some reason, I do not have tawfiq to wake up for namaz-e-shab. Mawla replies to him, قَدْ قَيَّدَتْكَ ذُنُوبُكَ. Your gунah has surrounded you and doesn't let you wake up. In other words, when you feel a lack of tawfiq, you feel hard-hearted, you feel lack of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, search carefully. What has gone wrong? Tamari life ma sut hu che. What has happened? Kain thyu hase. Something is there. the grace of Allah doesn't just close. And this is not for anyone else to judge. We all have to just look inside and think that what has gone wrong? What have I not done? Where am I going wrong? Where am I falling down? And inshallah you will see that and you can make amends. But in summary, once again, the more baggage and negativity you hold, the less connected you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those who are lighter spiritually, those who have less baggage, who are very tender, gentle, forgiving, they let things go, they don't hold on to things. For them, even the slightest issue in life will make them think. For some of us, because we are used to it, it doesn't make us think anymore. Ultan, what happens is that we start to blame other people. If something goes wrong in my life, I start to blame other people. I never think, oh, it's my own doing. وَمَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُّصِيبَةٍ, I think this is the verse if I'm not mistaken. وَمَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُّصِيبَةٍ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُمْ. Whatever calamity befalls you, it is because of what your own hands have done. Quran. Those who are lighter spiritually, those who have less baggage, they're much more forgiving, they're much more gentle. And they find a very special connection with Allah. And for them, it's very easy to pinpoint what has gone wrong because 99% of their day is clean. Maybe 1% here or there. If they slip up, they can easily pinpoint and say, yes, for that reason, something went wrong. Let me give you the example of Ayatollah Ha'iri. Ayatollah Ha'iri was someone who very much kept himself extremely clean and pure. And he was very sensitive, and his main advice was really that watch what you eat. Halal roji, halal rizq, halal kawanu, halal anaj. He would be very much on this. Okay, watch what you eat. And whenever anything doubtful was put in front of him, he would immediately feel a sense of nausea. He would immediately feel uneasy. Because he was so pure inside that that thing is now a foreign object for him. That thing now doesn't belong with him. Now what happened was, once he was invited to someone's house as a guest. So they serve him, he eats normally, everything is fine, and at the end of the meal they say, now let's bring some fruit. Now they didn't have fruit. So the father tells the sons, go into the garden and bring some fruit. So they go, they come back with some fruit and they put it in front of him, and immediately he feels nauseous. So he says, if you don't mind, I won't partake. And they were like, Befarmai, please, have. And he was like, in one way he was feeling shy to say no. So, he would put his hand out and then draw it back and say, no, if you don't mind, I won't partake. And so he resisted. Now afterwards, they found out something. What happened was, the boys had gone into the garden, and the neighbor's tree, which was overgrowing, had dropped fruits into their garden. So they picked it up. Now what they thought was, it's not a big deal, is it? Pachiti halal kare lesu. We will make it halal afterwards with him. We will take his permission. And most likely he would have agreed. Most likely he would have said, yeah, no problem. If my fruits are falling in your garden, you can have them. But on that moment, it was not halal. On that moment, they had not gone and made it halal. They had not taken permission. Now, that was put in front of him, and he immediately felt nauseous. He felt, no, this is something that I can't touch, I can't eat. Now, you may say, what's the big deal? Come on, later on it would have become halal, no problem. I'm telling you, it depends on your level. It depends on your level. Everyone has a different level. Everyone has to make this good with their own Lord. It wasn't acceptable for him. For him, it was not acceptable. The great Sheikh Ansari, rahmatullah alayhi, one of our greatest scholars, he was a student and he had a roommate. And they lived an extremely poor life. Now, many years later, they met again. These two met again. Sheikh Ansari was the scholar of the time, the sage, the wise, the teacher of the time. His books were famous. His teaching was famous. He was the marja of the time. Now, he meets this old roommate of his. The roommate says to him, Sheikh, mashallah, you have progressed so much in your spirituality, in your taqwa, in your knowledge, but I have remained where I am. How come? So Sheikh says to him, do you remember when we were roommates and we were so poor? And one day, do you remember, we barely had enough money to buy some bread. And you had gone to the shop to buy bread, to the bakery, you had gone to buy bread. And you bought the bread, but then you told the shopkeeper, put some syrup on it. Put some toppings on it. But I don't have money to pay you, I'll pay you later. And then you brought it back and I asked you, okay, where's this syrup from? And you said, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm going to make it good with him later. I've got it on a loan at the moment. I've taken a loan kind of thing. I've told him I'll pay him later. And do you remember, I ate all the edges where there was no syrup, but you ate all the parts with syrup. And you had asked me, why aren't you eating these nice bits? And I told you, what if tomorrow you forget, he forgets, you die, he dies, something goes wrong, and we don't have the money to pay him? And that is why I'm here and you're where you are. In other words, I was careful. Our progress is completely dependent upon our care and attention and our taqwa. What is taqwa? Taqwa is this only. Taqwa is to be careful, not to take risks with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even polluted morsels can have an effect. And even these things will bring spiritual darkness because Allah is not involved in those things. Allahu waliyul ladina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. Allah is the guardian of those who believe. He takes them from darkness into light. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَوْلِيَاؤُهُمُ الطَّاغُوتُ يُخْرِجُونَهُم مِّنَ النُّورِ إِلَى الظُّلُمَاتِ. Those who disbelieve, their guardians are the rebellious ones, the shaitan, the taghut. They take them from light into darkness. So these darknesses, these pollutions, these heavinesses of the soul, we have to be very, very careful of. If we want to join with Imam Zaman, we want to link with Imam Zaman, we have to be very, very careful of these things. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, I think I'll finish with this. This is the final thing. There are other discussions. For example, you may have in your mind what will happen to the very severe criminals when Imam Zaman comes. Does that mean they get forgiven as well? So keep that as a question for tomorrow. See, look, I'm giving you the questions now. So that is a question. Another one is, for example, what about Haqqun Nas? How will Imam deal with Haqqun Nas? Because Haqqun Nas, we've always heard that Allah will not forgive. The person has to forgive. So what about Haqqun Nas? And other such questions, okay? But this is the final thing now that we finish with. And this is a beautiful supplication of the Imam of the time for us. Imam Zamana ni dua amara mate. Okay? This is narrated by Sayyid ibn Tawus. He says, I visited Samarra, and when I was proceeding towards the Sardabe Muqaddas is the basement, yeah? When we go down to do that special visitation of the last place that Imam Zaman was seen, we go down into the basement of Samarra, yeah? As I was going down into the Sardabe Muqaddas, I heard the sound of a munajat. Munajat is what? Munajat in Arabic means a very special personal prayer. And I realized that this was the sound of Imam Zaman. So I heard this voice, I was hearing these words, I was going into Sardabi Muqaddas. And when I got there, these are his words. When I got there, I saw this kind father praying for the forgiveness of his sons. And he was saying the following, "O Allah, our Shias have been created from the offshoots of our Nur and the leftover part of our clay. But they have committed many sins. But Khudaya, O Allah, their reliance is on our love and our authority. They rely on this. O Allah, if their sins are between you and them, if they're Haqqullah, if their sins are between you and them, then please overlook them and we will be happy with that." Imam is giving his own wasata. Do you see? People say, why do we give Imam's wasata? Imam is giving his own wasata, for God's sake. Imam is giving his own respect in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to say, forgive these people. And if it is between them, if these issues, if these shortcomings, if these guna are between them themselves, then create peace and agreement between them and use our khums to solve their issues between them. In other words, give to one person who is owed so that he can overlook the issue of the other person. And O Allah, enter them into heaven. Distance them from hell. Do not gather them and our enemies in your punishment together. How would it feel? God forbid, how would it feel that those people that we say are cursed and la'natullah alayhim, that they're the enemies of the Ahlul-bayt, how would it feel if we actually ended up on the Day of Judgment with those same characteristics as they have and we would be with them? We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, give us the company of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Keep us always with Ali and Awlad Ali. Keep us always with Janab Fatima. Keep us always with Aba Abdullah, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein and all the Aimma alayhimus salam. Azizo, Dostane Aziz, we are at the end of our series. We'll remember now some of the aftermath of Karbala. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, Assalamu alayka ya Imam Zainul Abidin. Now the jihad of Imam Sajjad has begun. If you remember, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam arrived in Karbala, he met with the tribe, Bani Asad. And he had told them that I'm buying this land from you and I'm gifting it back to you on the condition that you bury us after Ashura. After we are killed and our bodies remain on the ground of Karbala, you bury us. Someone once in Medina, after Ashura, many years after Ashura, he was feeling alone and he was destitute and no one was coming to his help. He began to shout in Medina. He began to shout, Anal Gharib, Anal Gharib, Anal Gharib, I am lonely, I am alone. Imam Zainul Abidin went to him and said, why do you say Anal Gharib? He said, Mawla, I say Anal Gharib because I'm here alone, I don't know anyone. Imam Sajjad said to him, if you were to die now in Medina, would they bury you or not? He said, Mawla, of course they would bury me. It's wajib on every Muslim to bury another Muslim. Imam Sajjad says, in that case, do not say Ana al-Gharib, because Gharib was my father Hussein. He had made a deal with Bani Asad that after we are killed, you are to bury us. On the 12th of Muharram, many people ask, how were the Shuhada buried? On the 12th of Muharram, Imam Zainul Abidin performs a miracle of imamat. He was meant to be in Kufa, shackled and chained in the dungeons of Kufa, but with the miracle of imamat, he actually traveled to Karbala. And when he arrived in Karbala, what did Zainul Abidin see? He sees the bodies are still on the floor of Karbala. He sees the limbs are still scattered on the floor of Karbala. He sees near Furat, there is the body of Abul Fadl al-Abbas. He sees in the Maidan of Karbala in Katlaga, Aba Abdullah's body, trampled as it was, still lay there. He looked at the men of Bani Asad and he said, "Did you not bury us?" They said to him, "Mawla, we wanted to bury, but we didn't know how to bury. Because the heads have been taken from the bodies, we didn't know who to bury where, which body belongs to whom." Imam Zainul Abidin says, "In that case, I will help you. I will tell you what to do. You assist me in burying the bodies of Aba Abdullah and his family and his companions." They begin. He tells them, first of all, we dig one big grave. When you go to Karbala and you pass by that area, there's a wall, they call it Ganje Shuhada. This is Ganje Shuhada. This is the big grave where many of the martyrs were buried together. He said the first grave we dig is a big grave where we put most of the Shuhada. Most of the Shuhada were buried there in Ganje Shuhada. And then he says, now we dig another grave. They say, "Mawla, now whose is this grave?" He says, "This grave is the grave of Habib ibn Madahir. He was the friend of my father. He deserves a special burial." They bury Habib in the special grave. This is why when you go to Karbala, you see near the Zari of Imam Hussein, there is the grave of Habib ibn Madahir, separate. Then he says, now there is a body which only I can bury. Only I can bury this body. And he begins to walk towards Qatlaga. He says, only a few of you come with me. As he is walking to the broken body of Aba Abdullah, the trampled body of Aba Abdullah, the mutilated and looted body of Imam Hussein, as he walks towards that body, he begins bending down and picking things up from the floor. They say, "Mawla, what are you picking up?" He says, "Look, these are the limbs and the fingers of Aba Abdullah. When people had come to loot, they did not find anything to loot. They saw the ring on the finger of my father. They tried to take it, it wouldn't come off. They took their dagger and they cut the fingers of my father. These are the things that I'm picking up." He goes and he buries the body of Aba Abdullah. Then Imam Sajjad alayhi salam begins to walk to Furat. They say, "Mawla, now where do you go?" He says, "There is one body remaining near Furat. I need to bury this body." When he reaches that body, he bends down. When he tries to pick it from the left side, the right side of the body collapses and falls down. When he tries to pick it from the right side, the left side of the body falls down. He looks at the sky and he cries, "Assalamu alayka, ya Abul Fadl al-Abbas." This is how Imam Sajjad buried the bodies in Karbala. Allah la'anatullahi al-qawmi al-zalimin wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalibin yanqalibun. Matame Hussein.